As the devastating war between Israel and the terrorist organization Hamas continues, President Biden and Democrats are taking action and remain engaged. Meanwhile, deadweight Republicans have shut down the House of Representatives, are blocking crucial military appointments, are pointing their finger at Biden and Democrats, and are eating barbecue in a closed-door club meeting. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, a recurring theme of this channel is to point out the numerous, the incalculable manifestations of the Republican Party's hypocrisy and lack of principle. Not because we think it's going to shame Republican politicians. It won't. Their shamelessness is their superpower. But maybe it will disgust, and rightfully so, centrists and moderates and independents who claim to be in the middle. Maybe they'll see the abundant hypocrisy from the right and the Republican Party and realize that they are the objectively worse political option. And as our ally Israel wages its war against the terrorist organization Hamas, and a body count of civilians, both Israeli and Palestinian, just continues to pile up, the Republican Party's uselessness continues to manifest. We have several clips to play. This probably could have been broken up into 4 or 5 different videos, but we'd be here all night, so I'm going to try to condense it into one short burst, okay? This is the recently deposed former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, offering his insights, his unsolicited advice to President Biden and Democrats about leadership.
No, I think the clarity here is 3 years ago, there wasn't a war in Ukraine. 3 years ago, Israel didn't have the most Jewish individuals killed along with Americans since the Holocaust. So what I'm seeing right now is something that is leaderless. I have watched the president do a barbecue, tweet about things that nobody cares about, and put a lid on today when the world is looking for leadership.
That's interesting, coming from the world's least qualified expert on leadership, Kevin McCarthy, who, as we know, suffered a humiliating and historic defeat when he was ejected from his leadership role in the House of Representatives. This is not a man who should be lecturing or offering advice to anybody, given that President Biden still has his job and is the most powerful man in the world. Now, I wrote about this basically the situation, on Luke Beasley's website, lukebeasleyshow.com/news. And so I want to be clear about this, because Republicans are going to lie about what President Biden has done or not done. So to be clear, President Biden, since Hamas launched its thousands of rockets into southern Israeli cities over the weekend, President Biden repeatedly has engaged with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has spoken repeatedly to the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, has pledged U.S. military intelligence and U.S. intelligence to Israel. He's already sent an aircraft carrier towards Israel as a show of support. He issued a strong public statement in support of Israel from the White House podium. He checked in on 2 U.S. congressmen, I think it was Cory Booker and Dan Goldman, who were in Israel at the time of the attack. He regularly convenes with his National Security Council and National Security advisors for constant updates. He also convened with the leaders of some of our strongest allies, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Italy, and then they together issued a strong declaration of support for Israel and a condemnation of Hamas. So President Biden's been at work. Meanwhile, Kevin McCarthy says, we're leaderless. Well, actually, you know what's leaderless? The House of Representatives, because they're officially in recess after they kicked you out. 1/2 of the most powerful branch, the legislature, is not available to President Biden, to the American people, and to Israel because of you, Kevin McCarthy, and your party, the Republicans. But one of the other things that he and other Republicans have been complaining about is the fact that President Biden ate barbecue on Saturday after he learned of Hamas's attack against Israel. This was a planned event. There was going to be a live band and barbecue. President Biden, even though he was getting regular national updates from the national security team, still allowed the event to unfold. Again, even though he was constantly being apprised. It wasn't like he took a vacation day. It wasn't like he called out sick. So they're complaining about the barbecue. Well, what's interesting is Monday, Republicans in the House of Representatives, which again is in recess and is of no use to anybody at this time, well, they met in a closed-door club meeting in the Capitol basement. And guess what they ate? Well, according to Jake Sherman, a reporter, during a meeting Monday night in the basement of the Capitol, Republicans aired recriminations from last week's vote to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker while scoffing down a pungent barbecue dinner. So, days after Hamas launched its terrorist attack and war was declared, Republicans, because the House of Representatives is shut down, met in a closed-door club meeting, and instead they complained about one another. You embarrassed us. No, you embarrassed us. How dare you kick out Kevin? No, how dare you, while eating barbecue. Meanwhile, they complain that President Biden eats barbecue even as he's delivering action, even as he stays engaged. The hypocrisy is astounding, but it doesn't end there. So Kevin McCarthy is no longer Speaker. There is no real leadership in the House Republican Conference. But you know where there is leadership? In the House of Representatives? Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was briefed last night on the situation in Israel. He's working on scheduling a briefing for all members of the House this week. The House is without a Speaker. The Speaker would usually get briefed. So let's be clear about what's happening. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic Minority Leader in the House of Representatives, stepped up because there is no Republican who can, because they are so incompetent and dysfunctional and unable. They have absolutely no talent for or interest in responsibly governing. So the guy who is in the minority, he's actually the one to step up and do it. But it goes beyond that, because it's not just House Republicans complaining, it's also Senate Republicans. Josh Hawley was one of the ones who was complaining about Biden eating barbecue, and he's a member here of the Republican Senate, or Republicans in the Senate. But you know what? Who else? Another Republican senator who's having an impact in this? Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. Okay, a guy who's never served in the military. Not that that's, a necessity to weigh in on things, but this is a man who is supplanting his own military expertise. He's putting that above the military expertise of national security advisors and career military officers, people who actually are veterans and have experience, because he's single-handedly blocking the crucial promotions of major military figures, which is, as we've discussed in a previous video, factually weakening national security and our ability to help allies such as Israel if push comes to shove. Now, you might think, well, maybe after what happened this past weekend, Tommy Tuberville has revisited his decision. Nope. So after Hamas attacked Israel, Senate Democrats said it was past time for several top-level military nominees to be approved. But a Tuberville spokesperson confirmed Sunday that the senator's position remains. He's going to continue his blockade. And why is he continuing his blockade? It's because he doesn't like a completely constitutional, completely legal DoD policy which reimburses service members for travel for their health care. Travel, not the health care itself, travel. He's upset about that, about an abortion policy. He thinks that the DoD is funding abortions. It's not true. But if DoD personnel, because of the, of state laws in the absence of Roe v. Wade, they have to travel to get an abortion, DoD will reimburse them for travel, as DoD always does for any travel for medical purposes. Tommy Tuberville doesn't like it. But Tommy Tuberville's opinion is irrelevant, okay? It's legal, it's constitutional, and it's commensurate with longstanding DoD policy. But he's trying to leverage that as a pain point because he has a personal issue with abortion. Rather than try to litigate the issue or legislate the issue the conventional way, he's trying to hold the military hostage at a time when one of our allies is currently waging a war. So that's what Republicans are doing. Now, I want to end on a clip here from the president, who very gently, as he is wont to do, makes a point about what Congress might do if and when they're able to reconvene, which would require House Republicans to get their act together.
We're going to make sure that Israel does not run out of these critical assets to defend its cities and its citizens. My administration has consulted closely with Congress throughout this crisis. And when Congress returns, we're going to ask them to take urgent action to fund the national security requirements of our critical partners. This is not about party or politics. This is about the security of our world, the security of the United States of America.
Well, I wish I could agree with the president, but unfortunately to Republicans, it's wrong. That when it comes time to unite behind a Democrat, they won't do it. Republican politicians hate Democrats more than they love their country. And I know that's a strong statement, but it's factually supported, okay? They expect when a Republican is in power, when a Republican's in the White House, that you and I and everybody, Democrat, Republican, independent, political, apolitical, socialist, libertarian, whatever, that you're supposed to unite patriotically behind the sitting president. That's what they demanded. I remember vividly when President Bush was in office after 9/11. They demanded it, they expected it. But when the shoe's on the other foot, that standard doesn't apply to them. They are not just criticizing the president, they're going out of their way to criticize him, and in so doing, more often than not, lying or employing double standards. But Congress needs to take urgent action, the president says. Well, they can't, because of House Republicans. So, folks, keep this stuff in mind as you encounter Republican criticisms of the president. And listen, there may come a time where it is important to criticize President Biden because President Biden's not perfect, okay? But the criticisms should be in good faith, and they should apply under a single standard. The criticisms you would apply to Biden, you should apply to Trump, and vice versa. We should all operate under a single standard. But as one of my commenters noted, if Republicans didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all.